Cool. So, Brent Lane, founder and CEO of BigGeo. It's a huge privilege to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's hit it straight away. So, what's the elevator pitch for BigGeo?
BigGeo is a modern geospatial data cloud. Our goal is to aim to solve everything from data management for geospatial workloads right through to the platform to build your solutions on top of.
Excellent. Could you tell us a bit more about the niche that you dominate?
We dominate large interoperable geospatial solutions. So when you have data that will not really work or you can work with that speed and scale and other stacks and solutions, we build that all in one unified place.
I see. So, is the word cloud heard around your workplace then?
Yeah, I mean, we've built our own cloud solutions as a way of helping our customers to experience the performance that our core technologies offer them, right? So it's a way for us to translate that performance into direct cost savings for those geospatial customers, and give them that what we call is like a sovereign data cloud here in Canada, or kind of a foreign controlled data cloud, an alternative to other major data architectures around the globe.
Okay, so there's several cloud infrastructure providers. Snowflake is one that I've seen mentioned on your website. What about Google Cloud, AWS, even Alibaba Cloud?
Yeah, like we participate with all of them. We don't currently work with Alibaba Cloud, but we're very cloud agnostic in the way our technology works. We just additionally built our own cloud because that was with geospatial information having different levels of security needed. To have your own cloud offering is definitely part of the solution stack. So that's something we thought was very important and a way to translate our performance into a great opportunity for our customers.
Yeah. Okay. Coming with your own cloud does seem to be a way that you stand out for sure. Okay. So something that I focus on in all of my interviews is the unique way that each company works backward from customer needs to a solution or a product. So could you characterize how this is done at BigGeo?
I mean, this is something we believe in deeply. Like working backwards from the customer is truly how you build great solutions, and how you kind of come up with novel approaches. I mean, this really starts back with the reason we acquired the technology out of the University of Calgary to begin with. These were some of the brightest minds in the space over the last decade, building knowing that this is a need that's coming, right? To work with modern machine learning and AI, you need to have efficient architecture, niche architecture to handle those solutions at speed and scale, because performance is key there. So, when we saw the drastic kind of direct performance savings through what we now call our BigGeo core, which is our core kind of technology stack, we immediately saw how big that opportunity was to translate that to customer needs. So working with geospatial customers for a very long time, you hear the same problem set, right? You hear it's really hard to work with big data. It makes our maps run really slow. We have to constantly do things like pre-rendering information, or we lose attributes, we lose context, and then trying to get different data sets that were, potentially pre-processed on a different system don't work interoperably. So we work backwards from that problem set to say, well, first of all, we've got to make sure all geospatial data is interoperable, right? We've got to make sure that it's capable of working at no matter how big the size, we can do it fast and performantly and help solve solutions. And so we said, first we're going to build a map product that's capable of visualizing that outcome, right? And so what do you need to build a great map product? Well, you need to have core architecture behind it to power that solution, to power that information. Well, we also need data, right? And we need a way to index and handle that data in a system that we have some controls over, so that the customer gets the best experience on that map-based product. Okay, so we built Data Lab, which is our data management platform. It's agnostic to data type. It's not specifically geospatial data. You can use it for all of your data inside of the system, but we specifically add that index value to geospatial information for map-based solutions. And then we said, to maximize the opportunity for the customer in terms of realizing that performance, instead of building on other cloud services that would really require the customer to be limited to like their architecture on with ours on top, and that cost. We said, I think if we go right down to the bare metal here and build our own cloud solution that's optimized for these geospatial workloads, we can really show that you can do massively valuable solutions in a secure way, all the way up to indexing and build all the way through to, actually visualizing that information. I mean, in a nutshell, this is about democratizing the access to geospatial so that it's not just for GIS engineers anymore. I think GIS engineers love our platform because they get to do things they previously couldn't at speed. They think that's really amazing. And it gives them more time to work on the problem instead of working on the technology. But for the people that aren't GIS experts, they're just saying, I never knew this was a challenge. Like, I would love using this product because now I can get the information I'm looking for without needing to be an expert in how to handle data, right? So we take all of that lift off their plate and just give them access to the business intelligence.
Yeah. Okay, there are some themes there which map on to a prior episode with Veribots. So it's interesting to have another guest on who's tackling the same problems, and yeah, real benefit here. Extra insight on this this challenge of large geospatial data. Okay, so it's interesting to hear that there was an acquisition from a University of Calgary research project. It's always interesting to see how businesses are built on innovation or collaborations with universities. So could you tell us about the skin in the game that you have, managers have, even general employees within BigGeo? And is there an ongoing relationship with this university?
Yeah, those are all important questions. Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to say, like, the Whereabouts team is incredible, and I think there's such a big need for collaboration across the industry. This is a massively growing industry and something that's going to shape our future. So we need lots of participants. But getting back to your question on the university and the participation and what we do with skin in the game. Well, I think, of course, from a founding team, there's always skin in the game. We invest directly. We have we've been part of this story. We built the thing, acquired the thing. So very invested. Some of our founding team, like, these are the people that came back from industry, like working at major, publicly traded companies, NVIDIA, AMD, to come back and work here to solve these problems at huge scale, right? And so it's a pretty neat story in the sense that, they did their PhDs, they did their masters in this technology over the years under Dr. Farmar Samavati, and said, we believe in it so deeply, we're going to come work back for the company that's now commercializing the tech. So I think that's incredible. To answer the latter half of your question, yes, we work continuously with the University of Calgary. As part of that acquisition, we signed a long-term commitment for funding that department in a collaboration where we earn ongoing IP in this technology, and we get to kind of earmark high-value R&D projects that are useful for the PhD and master's students to be, doing their studies on, as well as that have big commercial value. So it's a win-win for the University of Calgary and ourselves.
Okay, there we go. It makes me think this is an important direction also for the podcast to, hunt down more of these guests for providing examples of these kind of collaborations.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we began to talk about the modern geospatial data cloud. I'll just describe it generally like that. Could you expand a bit on this concept and how BigGeo elaborates on this in a commercial way?
Yeah, I think, many of the major, players and the hyperscalers and the data architectures in the space, they're doing a great job, but they've got to handle all types of data, right? So it's really hard for them to specialize in building something as unique as geospatial in a very effective way, while making their clouds, more generalized for all types of data. So, like, the opportunity is, by focusing on this niche solution, we can create value for those types of customers. I mean, geospatial data workloads are estimated to be about 10% of all cloud computing by 2030. So, in a, call it a predictive $2.6 trillion cloud computing market, that's a $260 billion revenue stream from, what it would have been as like 20B globally 5 years ago. So I think it's a very rapidly growing industry. There's room in it for many new entrants, and geospatial data has long been known as some of the most valuable gold standard data on the planet. So working in it is an exciting space, and we're very happy to be in it.
Okay, excellent. So I think we can move on to an example of how you're putting this concept to work. So I've seen that you operate a BigGeo marketplace. Could
Yep.
you give us an example of how other consultancies or businesses can use this to generate income?
Yeah, I think that's an important part of our technology platform. We generated a marketplace because we were already doing data management for some of the world's largest geospatial data providers. One of the major pain points you hear in the industry is around, well, I acquired this spatial data, or I didn't even know where to find it to begin with. And then when I acquired it, the file got shipped to me and I have no idea what to do with it. It's so big, it's complicated, the way it's structured, I don't understand. And so we created a connected marketplace so people could purchase this geospatial data through our system in a turnkey way, buy geopartitioned information on the fly, and be able to have it directly inserted into a map product where they don't have to worry about that digital transformation piece. So as an opportunity for our global data sellers, they now have a turnkey geospatially enabled ecosystem to help them translate highly valuable information into usable map products for their customers. And so we found a bunch of different ways to help them to monetize data. And we see this as a really fast growing opportunity because now every company who's sitting with powerful geospatial information behind the fence right now that says, this wasn't our core business. Like, we do something completely different, but I would love a way to monetize my data stream or anonymize and monetize my data stream. BigGeo's marketplace is now that opportunity for them.
Okay, there's a few. I mean, this reminds me of the discussion I had with Jed Sundwall.
Mm-hmm.
They operate an open geospatial data marketplace. I mean, there's even AWS. There's so many of these out there. Is there a way that yours performs better with certain types of data, or is it that you are finding more Canadian customers are using it? What is a way that your particular marketplace stands out?
Yeah, I mean, one of the really interesting things we're doing, we sell through our data lab, data management service, and our marketplace, we sell a product we call Always On, which means that these large geospatial data providers, we're talking about, data sets in the range of like 100 gigabytes of new information a day, right? Huge sets that they don't, traditionally, these would be customers that have to buy an AWS Redshift account just to use the data. So what we provide is the utility for our data providers to pay for that compute in our system and then share that in a transactional way to their customers buying that data. So it's one account providing the data and numerous buy-side customers using that same compute inference. So it's a way for them to provide the utility and the access to that data on a map-based product, but pay once for the compute and sell it many times to their customers.
Okay, all right. I'm sure listeners would like to, go and have a try themselves. I'm guessing a trial account is available, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we provide trial accounts to all new signups. Comes with a certain amount of free credits, which they can use to either visualize their own data on our Datascape map-based products, manage some of their data, use our cloud services, and give the full ecosystem a try.
Okay. Do you need an account to search the marketplace?
You do not need an account to search the marketplace for data. And it's just when you sign up, transact on data, or grab one of the free data sets, you need to sign up to gain access to the map-based products.
Okay. I mean, it even makes me think, like, I could start my own little business running a geospatial company. I don't know about what's a common one, footfall data in retail businesses. Are there examples of small one-person operators that are, making money selling access to their data sets?
I mean, that's a great example. There are many companies, and I think that is the standard in the industry. Many companies that own these data sets, like they build one-off solutions that have extreme value for a specific industry that they're selling to. Our end goal is to create that ecosystem where they can put that, builders can build those systems on ours and use our marketplace to deliver that value. So without taking on the upfront cost of buying large data sets, they can buy partitioned access to information and sell that value forward to the market.
Okay. Yep. All right. So another thing I was keen to dig into is that I hear you guys have made your way along the hallowed halls of the New York Stock Exchange and rung the bell. You'll have to tell us about that story.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, it all kind of dovetails together. A lot of I want to talk about a specific use case as well in the finance industry. I mean, I'll give you one example. So there are companies in our system that would buy point of interest data, for example, and they look at all of the traffic, and they model all the traffic going through Walmarts across North America every single day. And they use that information to model out the forward earnings of the quarterly financials for Walmart, as an example. And then they use that predictive logic to make guesses on whether they're going to outperform earnings or underperform earnings, and take bets on that. So that's just one example how you would think about point of interest data being used for finance purposes. So obviously, these sorts of things are very important to the New York Stock Exchange. Geospatial is a big topic. They're using it, like a lot of finance companies are now using these satellite images, Earth observation data, to model out and game like financial outcomes. So big growing part of the industry. Part of our, New York Stock Exchange partners with Snowflake to do a global startup challenge every year, and we were introduced to that competition as we were like close partners with Snowflake, and we ended up placing second in the global startup challenge out of 900, and I think it was 930 companies originally, 100 plus countries represented. And we ended up in the final top three with two other amazing companies. Went down to San Francisco, had a great presentation that you can find online. Watch us in all our glory. And as part of that, we had the amazing opportunity of going with Snowflake to the New York Stock Exchange, spending a day, visiting all of the sites within the New York Stock Exchange building, and having
what were some of those sites?
Yeah, like just some of the
I've only been to the outside, regular civilians to see this massive building and security guards and a perimeter fence. But you've been
all the peasants, right? Yeah. No, it was incredible. I mean, you go through like layers of security and go in and you get the tours and you see all of the amazing companies that have come through and gone public on the New York Stock Exchange. You get to visit the floor, see where the action's happening, all of the telecasts, and then you go to some of the more of the private, call them like the private dining halls that that companies you recognize every day and buy their goods every day have like been in those rooms celebrating their go publics and hear those stories, and that's pretty incredible. Part of that experience, we had the opportunity to go up and ring the closing bell for a day, which is I think once in a lifetime sort of opportunity. Hopefully not once in a lifetime, but so far once in my lifetime, which is incredible. You get to.
Is it a big bell?
It's a big bell. It's you actually just press a button, but.
No.
Yeah,
I was hoping there'd be a rope and.
Yeah, me too, right? But I think that's the digital age we live in, so it makes it kind of foolproof. Big part of that though was you get to sign your name on the wall on the walk up to the bell. I mean, you see some of the incredible people and you think about all of those historic people that have signed that wall, presidents and major global leaders of business and commercial enterprise, and you're on that same wall, which is pretty cool. So I think those were some of my major takeaways. The experience just overall was incredible. Snowflake's team was really incredible throughout the process. So lucky to be working with them in that capacity, and obviously the New York Stock Exchange does an incredible job there. So
okay, that's amazing. So what were the other two in the top three?
The other two in the top three, one was a company that does restaurant finance prediction for like predictive logic for pricing pricing your menu items at restaurants across North America. Like the other ones are really in like I think it was in the more in the finance sector, helping to model out things in ML, but I'd have to look back on that.
Okay, but the
Yeah.
point is, I guess, that you were unique in being to do with geospatial,
Yeah.
and a credible judge, if I can put it that way, people at the NYSE
Yeah.
saw enough value in it to rank you second. So I think that's something that all of us participating in geospatial can be proud of,
Yeah.
that you were the ones that represented us as an industry there. But it's important that a dispassionate, one of the world's most dispassionate observers who's there
Yeah.
to extract value or provide a means to do that, the New York Stock Exchange, saw that us as a discipline, with you as the representative, can offer that value. So yeah, that's a really important story for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the bigger takeaway. I mean, there was two runner-ups, to be clear, I guess. So we're one winner and two runner-ups, but it's yeah, I think just being on that final stage is the real win. That's multiple layers of judging just to get there, and just to see how valuable a company like Snowflake's pedigree sees geospatial to be in the modern era. They have a very laser focused view of AI in today's world, and just to take their eye off that for a second to say, we think the geospatial AI is going to be a huge wave. I think is really a powerful story.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is some commentary basically about Snowflake. You've started to shift into AI there, so can you, off the cuff, provide a bit of an insider's perspective on this sort of new wave of geospatial foundation models,
Yeah.
and whether yourselves and Snowflake together or separately see this as being a credible new direction for our industry?
Yeah, I think I'll answer those in reverse. I definitely believe that there are many great people at Snowflake that believe that this is, the wave that's important. I think traditionally this geospatial industry has kind of been tucked away in the corner. It was, for a very long time, it was, basically held a secret by the government, right? So, it's kind of a new industry in a way. And there isn't the same amount of expertise in it as there are in other data products. So that's one way of looking at it. I think the modern kind of geospatial AI is going to evolve very quickly. Every consumer knows the questions they want to ask about information about the earth around them, right? When we talk about geospatial, really we're just talking about data about the planet you live on. And inherently, like, what would be important to you? Do I want to you use it every day on things like Google Maps, right? I want to find the nearest park, the nearest restaurant, how far to get there, how to navigate to that way, navigate to that location. So I think we already understand why it would be valuable to us, and AI is helping the communication layer between traditionally hard systems to work with and the communication to get those outcomes. And that is going to accelerate the use of geospatial information tenfold.
Yeah, I mean, so this can be linked, at least in the context of this podcast, to an upcoming guest, Mark Spaeth, who was last at Earth Daily Analytics. I came across him at the Geospatial Risk Summit, beginning of the year in Manhattan. And he gave a really popular presentation, which resulted in about 15 minutes of questions from everyone at the summit. There seems to be a bit of tension in our industry about the validity, really, of geospatial foundation models. There was a question from Ryan Abernathy, who runs Earthmover, basically saying that if it's not physics driven, there could be the risk of basically hallucinations, which ignore physics in the outcomes or recommendations given by these systems. Maybe, again, I'm putting you on the spot, but I'd be interested to know if any of these reservations have come up in your discussions of this.
Yeah, like these are very common reservations. I think this goes back to some of the root of the challenge. Traditionally, GIS, specifically GIS engineers, are scientists, they believe in 100% accuracy, or it shouldn't exist, right? You shouldn't have a solution unless you're getting a science-based answer that is 100% correct, or 99.9% correct. I think in today's world, even with our modern LLMs or agentic models, that also hallucinate, people are looking for a faster path to an answer close enough most of the time, right? And so it's more of a theory-based response here. Is what is good enough for most solutions? Like, are you trying to get close to the answer? Are you trying to get that first step? Are you trying to take a shortcut to better information, and then maybe say, now that I've used AI to get close, and I think there's value in going deeper, maybe I'm going back now to my GIS team and saying, we need to proof this out now, right? So I think, it's really about stepping stones. I believe if you're using AI-driven geospatial to help answer important questions quickly and get close to an answer, you're using it for the right reasons. If you're looking for science-backed 100% proof, paper to be able to write your master's thesis or your PhD on the results of an AI-driven geospatial solution, of course the rebuttals are going to be clean and clear, right? So I really just think it's about defining the question. Are you looking to use it to get answers to questions that you wouldn't even you would have had no answer before because you couldn't get that information because it was just too hard to work with, and you didn't know if there was value in investing in a GIS team to do it. If you're using it for that reason, I think it's incredible. If you're using it because you're saying, well, we need to proof this out exactly because it's going to drive public decision, then I think you potentially need to go back to more of back to your roots, right? And build out a model that you can make sure is working exactly as defined.
The theme that comes out there for me is pragmatism, and also going from maybe a situation where there's 100 possible answers down to 10, and you see utility in restricting it down from 100 to 10, and then maybe putting effort into finding which exactly amongst those 10 is the real answer. Is that a useful summary?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about being pragmatic, but also asking I'll use a real example. Let's say I'm the CFO of an energy company, and my GIS team has spent an incredible amount of time building well reports of all of our assets in Texas. And we're saying, we have that, it's proofed, we know that to be true. There's all of our daily production. Now, as a CFO, I just want to know big round numbers. Is our production up more than 10% or is it down more than 10%? And if you can use AI-driven solutions with that data to visualize that in a more of a command-driven request, you've really got something, right? Where that traditional workflow would have to go back to the GIS team. Can you give me a report on this? Days lag, I don't get the information I'm looking for. And we kind of missed the thread. So I think it's more about using it for alternative questions that we don't even know we're not asking yet, as opposed to building the data itself. I think there's still the need to be really critical on how we construct geospatial information. But I think the AI can play a critical part in helping the rest of the market to communicate with it.
Yeah, that's really sounding like humans acquiring a new capability.
Yeah.
It's hard to characterize this, but I really like the phrase you used, where through using this tool, we are discovering new questions we didn't think we needed to ask.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you do that once you start working with geospatial information this way, it comes to you organically. You see a cluster of points and you're like, what is that? Oh, that's all the foot traffic around this really popular burger joint. Okay. Where else do we have foot traffic like that? Okay, where's the common thread? You start to ask the next question without being able to do that and just go, well, I wouldn't know. I'm going to send it back to GIS engineers to figure this out. They potentially are going to ask a different question, from a science-based approach. So I think it's important to let us start to communicate with that information in a way that we start to ask the next question. And that's where the market's going.
Okay, it's a privilege to have some insight about this new development in our industry. I mean, even IBM
Yeah.
of course, is having a go at geospatial foundation models. My understanding is a couple of years ago they had the one with the most parameters. So it's a privilege. You're providing a real service to our listeners here, Brent, in what a CEO thinks about these new geospatial foundation models and how they're permitting customers to ask you questions and get a broader view of the landscape. Okay, so before we finish up, I wanted to fish for another application of geospatial using the BigGeo platform in finance. Are you able to provide us with another example?
Yeah, I think I've got a few in this kind of modeling out of
Hit
there was
us
one.
with as many as you like.
Yeah, there was one that was done kind of publicly recently on Chipotle, actually. Same idea, but using Earth observation instead of point of interest. They used it to calculate the daily amount of vehicle traffic in their parking lots to model it
That's
out.
a
And
common one. Yep.
yeah, they got that one down. So it's a common one that's out there. I think they got it down to almost 99% accuracy to like their kind of daily revenue, which is incredible when you start to think about like that data science side of it, where you're going, just using something as like a vehicle count, being able to model out revenue that precisely across large scale just shows you the size of kind of the finance application for this. I mean, another one we would use is things like, you use in our world is like pipeline data, right, for finance. So traders are using this information to kind of forecast, dailies on production and where there might be barriers, and if one station goes down, how does that affect the upstream or the downstream supply, right? And so it's becoming so relevant because this used to be information that would come once a week in a report, right? And so you do your best to forecast. Now whoever has access to the real time or the daily information is winning on the margin, right? And so I think it's geospatial's very quickly in finance become like a priority because it's how you maintain your edge in the market.
I mean, that basically implies that a geospatial analyst or some general data analyst with access to BigGeo or some platform that offers geospatial insights is a critical part of any finance analysis or consultancy firm in providing alpha ahead of quarterly reports. It almost seems like our industry is routinely or going to be routinely involved in every finance prediction. Maybe that's going too far.
Yeah, I don't know if I can state that. I definitely think that's the right trend, though. I think you're going to see this sort of information be used in explosive new ways in finance. Things that, I think every time you can give a tool to a new industry that says, well, I never really thought about it like that before, they're gonna find incredibly new ways to ask that question. So I think it's more about, again, going back to the communication layer, providing the access to geospatial information through, agentic models, AI in general, AI ready geospatial data, I think is the future here, where the industries that we've always serviced, instead of being driven from GIS, trying to teach what the value of the thing they constructed is to the business layer. The business layer is now asking the questions backwards and saying, if we could just do that, then I could get this information and that would really help me to solve the next problem or help me to forecast this next need. So it's really helping the business layers to connect in very valuable ways.
Yeah, I mean, so another thing that's sprung to mind, I feel like I'm finally starting to get into the interesting questions now. So just to talk about a couple of themes that have come up during the podcast over a few guests. So we had Nadine Alamay on from Taylor Geospatial Institute. What she mentioned is that Taylor Geospatial Engine is working on a global data set of the world's agricultural field boundaries. You can imagine how that's a useful data set because there'd be all sorts of commodity price predictions that us as geospatial analysts could assist in making to do with what we detect within those field boundaries. So there's a whole lot of to do with commodity trading that we can help out with those field boundaries. Another set of boundaries is the building footprints that you've got from Overture Maps Foundation, but Microsoft is contributing and all the others. So that's, I think we're up to more than 1 billion of those footprints. Maybe that's going a bit too far, but it's definitely in the hundreds of millions. But then another one that seems important is the parking lot boundaries.
Right.
So is there a global data set of parking lot boundaries?
A global data set of parking lot boundaries. I know that some of the data providers we work with have a robust set of block level data, North America wide. I don't know if I can say, in full honesty, that I know of another data set that's global in that nature, but I think these sorts of things are being built at incredible scale now with the amount of Earth observation and AI to dissect satellite imagery and kind of create these data sets. I think that's very interesting intersection.
Yeah, I'm only asking that because you said that they got to within 99% accuracy of I guess quarterly profit numbers for Chipotle based on remote sensing to do with what was happening in the Chipotle parking lots. So that sounds like an incredibly important to do with spatial finance primary data set for predictions.
Yeah, I think like in that case specifically, they had their teams kind of geofencing all of the Chipotle, lots, looking at it that way. I don't think we would have a kind of inclusive parking lot data set right now, but it's definitely an opportunity, and I think that speaks to the size of the market and the growth for new entrants saying, if I just built a global parking lot data set, how valuable would that be to the world's finance industry? And platforms like BigGeo are the delivery.
That's what I was thinking. Then you can just put it on BigGeo, away you go.
Yeah, exactly. And tap into those markets. So customers are looking for these unified solutions to be able to, create these valuable products and not have to, hunt the internet for, 40.
It's just there, away we go, run our algorithms on that. Yeah, I'm fascinated. Okay, I'm excited. I think we've got to a good point there. All right, so I think we've probably got to segue then also to the last question. So what are you looking for in new hires?
I think, anybody who's not looking for AI systems engineers, AI engineers in general, geospatial AI, I think would be kind of, you'd be heading in the wrong direction for the kind of the tailwinds in the industry. So definitely looking for those people, looking for people that are just passionate about building global size solutions. So I think anybody that's thinking about modern GIS are people we're looking for here. Potential data scientists is another one we're looking for that are in that kind of global geospatial thinking space. And modern DevOps is definitely people we're looking for as well. We're looking for DevOps people that are looking to build new ways of connecting to specific geospatial data and building clouds, building the modern cloud, not just your traditional kind of data architecture. Traditionally, DevOps is its own domain. I'm looking for people that build cloud architecture that think about it more as a complete system, more in the software engineering versus, just the architecture of working with the actual server itself.
I have to take the opportunity whilst you're in front of me. So a recent announcement that seemed to be vaguely important in our industry was that we went finally, Javier, the CEO of Cardo's campaign to get the GeoParquet or the geospatial modification to the Parquet file metadata schema updated to just come with geospatial by default. Is that significant to you? Do you guys use Parquet files? Has it mattered for your business?
Yeah, I mean, Parquet is our standard format. That is what we use. So, we handle all different types of data formats. We have our own proprietary data format, but we translate everything into Parquet for export and import and use. So it is important to us that, the market and the industry kind of come together to standardize these solutions. Being in tech for 20 years now and, people having experience with people for even longer than that, I think those are traditionally hard problems to solve. To try to get every technology company to try to be on the same format, to agree to a standard. They've been trying to do this with geospatial for a very long time.
Okay.
So we try to create the bridges instead of adopting one formula. We say, Well, if we can create the connectivity and the translation between those layers, I mean, we're solving the problem in the same way.
Yeah. Okay. So, because I guess I'm enthusiastic about this question because there was a panel discussion that Ben Prudhomme from Whereabots basically put together during a Databricks conference in San Francisco last year, and I went over there just to participate and see what it was all about, and that was before Geospatial was included by default in the Parquet format. But now that this has been achieved, they were sort of selling this as being, the final piece of the puzzle. Now geospatial is just a part of general data analytics analyses or functions or services. There is no geospatial being in a back room, with the doors and the windows closed. Now our industry and the insight we offer, it is routine to access by people who have a generic data analytics background. Do you view this the same way?
I do. I mean, I'm very excited by that promise. I guess I'm always just cautious because, every time there's a new entrant that comes in and says, we're going to do it a little bit differently, they grow in scope and scale and they build a separate system, a different closed system, and they gain customer traction. You've now got another blocker to translation, and maybe that's their competitive edge. I've seen it happen enough times where, that you got to just be capable. And I think in today's, call it data landscape, of just working collaboratively across all formats, all data types, and trying to build these open solutions, agreed, but also by, to maintain the value in the industry. And this is something I talk about a lot. You have to also find ways of helping the customers to maintain their value. People will stop building geospatial information if everything's open source. Right?
Okay, and that's you speaking, because it was Source Cooperative was the platform that Jed Sunwall of Radiant Earth was talking about in a prior episode. So you're talking about the commercial. This is it's nice to have someone from within the commercial environment responding to this open source marketplace.
Yeah, and that's I truly value that. I think that that's how we educate the population and get more access, get more people using geospatial information. It's very, very valuable to have those sorts of places for collaboration and use. But like in any industry, if there's no value being created, eventually the commercial layer will just dissipate and the innovation will stop. Right. So that's my take on that. I think you need to have both. Right. You need to have a way for, the newest high value data sets to be able to be monetized. And there's a role of where eventually they don't become as valuable and they can open source them and move on. Right. But I think you need to have a commercial layer between innovation and open sourcing everything.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you've described why entrepreneurs exist. Yeah. All right. Good. Well, yeah. Speaking of entrepreneurs, you are one, and I think, at least for me, your story about ringing the bell on the New York Stock Exchange was a really motivating one. But yeah, I think so many of the points you made there, our listeners will get value from. In fact, actually, you're the second guest who's rung that bell. There was also Gillian Malod, who now works for ICE, which is the company that owns the New York Stock Exchange. She, through a nature-based solutions campaign around some analytics to do with the function of nature in the markets, and alpha, believe it or not, in finance that can be delivered through that. She also was on the same stage, but yeah. So who knows who the next person on will be who's also rung the bell. But yeah,
I hope there's a lot more.
Thanks, Brent. Yeah, so inspiring, and yeah, I look forward to seeing that global parking lots data set on your BigGeo marketplace.
We're working hard on it. Thanks so much for having me.